Hey guys, so before we go any further in the video series, I thought about doing this video to better explain the next step, which is UV planning. In my opinion, the UV planning part is the most important part, and yeah, I want to go over it a little bit. I watched a couple of you guys from my Discord and generally in the community who are watching the series that I'm already doing with Ronix. It's basically the same thing that I'm doing here, only that here I'm taking a bit more time, trying to make it a bit more beginner friendly, spend more time on each step. But generally, people are kind of reluctant on doing this workflow, let's say. And I get it. I really get it because for me in the beginning, it seemed so opposite, so reverse way of doing things in the normal way that I'm doing it, and unless you try, you can't see how effective and beautiful this way of doing assets is. So I can't convince you, but you have to really start with a very simple asset just so you understand the workflow. But yeah, let's quickly explain a little bit. So I have this building here I found in Prague, basically Acroas. Shout out to my man Acroas. The okay, yeah, Across is doing a very similar asset, well, pretty much exactly the same kind of asset, but yeah, he's basically modeling everything. He's doing it in the old school way, let's say. So I opened this in Photoshop and I'm gonna explain to you like the UV planner, how you actually should think about this. So any building can any building has unique parts on it, unique elements. When I say elements, I'm thinking about materials. Over here, we can see like we have this beige color, which is like one material. I'm not thinking like exactly plaster, or I'm thinking color and material. So we have this beige, we have this brownish thing, and probably on the roof and so on and so forth. I chose this building because it's quite simple, but there are a few things which you can miss out. So before explaining to you the UV plan, let's actually set in stone what is the actual plan that I'm gonna show you for this video series and the one that Ronix is doing as well. So basically it's called the master plan and you start with a placeholder mesh, which I already showed in video number 1, after which you make a UV plan. So the placeholder mesh is something extremely simple. You don't have to model the entire building, just a simple, very simple building where you just understand the scale, the proportions and all that, a block out. Then you make the UV plan, then you make the UV layout. So after you have the entire plan, you pack all the islands. Then you start the texturing, and once you have each individual planned face textured, you start the assembly, the Lego assembly. So you just make the final mesh, okay? Then you make the normal specular illumination, which I think are mandatory. And then if you have alpha, you do alpha, and then you do LOD, and then you import, right? So this is the old way. You start by making the entire final mesh, which I think is crazy. Like, for example, look at this entire apartment block. Do you see how big this is? Imagine doing all of this, extruding every single window, making all of the details. That takes forever, dude, forever, right? Then you must UV unwrap. So you have to make sure that you select every single double window and not 3 windows. So every single double window, unwrap all of them, stack them on top of each other, or I don't know, make a few variations, then select all of those, and it's so annoying. And so many people hate UV unwrapping, and they haven't even tried like some organic mesh or something. Then you do the UV layout / packing, which again, then you do the texturing, then you make the normal specular and so on and so forth. This old way, even though it's less steps, it's like 7 steps compared to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 steps. It actually takes way longer, way longer in my opinion, and less efficient. And over here on the right side, I wrote the major pros and yeah, the pros and cons. But on the old way, there are only cons compared to, it's basically the reversed. So on the master plan way of doing things, like you have more control you possibly have less triangles. Now depends how skilled you are about this, about sunken things and so on and so forth. You definitely have a smaller texture size, but definitely there are skilled people who can achieve this, but in general you will achieve a smaller texture size because you plan everything perfectly. You have a better mesh topology wise, like because once you start the assembly, it's like so easier for you to understand how things go and what you should connect and what should be sunken and all that and so on. And number one, you will have a smaller file size. If you plan absolutely everything perfectly, by having a smaller texture size, you will automatically have a smaller file size. And if you don't believe me, look at my last essay that I released on the workshop, the Channing building from New York, which is absolutely massive, 56 stories high, and it's only 7 megabytes. Compare it to other asset creators, I'm not going to name people, but I think the building is extremely well optimized. It's very beautiful. Anyway, yeah. So on the old way, you have less control because you just do it like, yeah, I can't explain. Possibly more triangles if you don't really know what you're doing. Probably bigger texture size, worse mesh because you connect everything and whatever, and bigger file size. Yeah, so that's wrong. All right, so let's go a little bit about how you UV plan. So on every single building, you have to look at what is unique, and if something is unique, can you repeat it somewhere else? That's constantly the thought that has to be behind in your mind, like constantly looking, what can I reuse, can I texture only a little bit of this color and reuse it in other parts, like that's generally the idea. Look at babushka here. So if we look here now there are those little holes, elements, vents, right? And many of you, like, you just make like an alpha plane or I don't know something, and you just float it above the actual plaster wall because you haven't planned properly and so on and so forth. I want to include those elements on the diffuse because if you look at here, there are stains, there are some, those little fine details which make the asset really nice. So that's why I want to include them on the diffuse. Okay, so let's think a little bit. What is unique? And maybe it is easier for you guys who are new to this approach to try and see this building without windows. Okay, so I prepared it like this. We're gonna look only on this part because basically this part is unique, and here is like the middle of the split. So basically everything is just copy pasted one more time. Right, so let's look at this. Also, I'm ignoring completely this line here, this vertical line. So what is unique? Like, obviously this, let me make a new layer here. Let's grab a different color and let's check the brush. Obviously this color is unique and this color is unique, right? So we would have to plan for that. Now, how big do we plan? Like, do we make it like horizontal? Like this big? And then we have this as well? Obviously not, because this would occupy a very large size on the diffuse. We want the diffuse, the texture resolution, to be as small as possible while maintaining a good balance on how many cuts we are gonna make on the mesh. Because you don't wanna, obviously you could have like only this part unique and then this part, but then you would have to make like a million cuts here, just so the triangle size would be a problem, right? So you have to find the balance. Now, what I'm looking at is that if we go back with the window thing, like we can see that the first vent always starts like on the top of the extruded part of, top of the extruded part of the windows, right? And then the next one is like in between floors, right? So again, above, in between, and so on and so forth. So the pattern repeats. You have to constantly look about those kind of things, right? So I think it would make sense, right, to have like, obviously like, let me turn this back on so we can see what we're doing. Obviously it would make sense to have like at least this kind of part. Okay, now the question is, how many floors do we include? Do we include all of them? Do we include less? again, don't think with windows, because the windows are separated because they are extruded. If the building would be like kind of flat, it's a different story. But I would add two, maybe, so we have like a larger area of of this color, but again, not that big. So then we can just repeat it here one more time. So basically here, and then one more time here on the top. Okay. But now, how wide do we go? Do we add like all those? Like, again, without windows. This is massive. This is occupying such a big space on the UV plan, on the UV layout, right? So we don't want that much. So I think a good thing would be to make a cut here. You want to make the cuts like, you don't want to have a cut here because it would look really weird. So I don't know, make a cut here and maybe include like up until here, and let's say about here, because I want to end it like in between floors, so I can have the vents, and then I can repeat this pattern. So I think that's enough, right? Okay. And now, how about this? Like, okay, how much do we need? Like this brownish color. Well, it starts from here and then it's here, and it's the same on the roof, so we can basically add this part. How big? Well, why not use the same size here? So we are kind of like this. So we would have beige and brown next to each other. Okay. Now, here is the tricky thing. Me and Ronix oftentimes talk about adding fake AO. What does that mean? It's basically adding this small shadow that you see here in the corners. Like, look at this. So the beige part is basically extruded inwards, like pushed inside, and then it forms this nice shadow here. Unfortunately, Cities Skylines is completely stupid with fake AO, with AO, with the shadows, and it's gonna look fine if the sun is like hitting this side, but if the sun is behind the building, this would look completely flat, and you don't want that. Adding fake AO is extremely simple. It's basically just a simple gradient, a black to transparent gradient. And I usually try to, as best as I can, to include that. Because it's gonna make things nicer. So you have to plan for that. So if we go back to what I already discussed, that I would like about 2 floors, okay? So why not start from the top, so we can include this beautiful shadow here directly on the diffuse, right? So again, how much do we need? Like, we need this part. I said till about here. So let's try to actually make a straight line. Well, the building is not really in perspective mode, in a flat mode, but whatever. So I would have like that, and then I can just repeat, because again, it starts with a vent right on that, so I can just reuse this part. But if I just copy this part here, I would have the shadow, like I would have a shadow here, so that doesn't make sense, right? So that's why you plan a little bit higher, okay? So something like that, and then you can have the shadow here. So that would be unique on the diffuse. So let's actually do something like this, maybe. Okay, and then this would be the shadow, the fake AO, basically this part here. I'm just moving it higher, so then on the next thing, I can reuse this without having any shadows there. Hope it makes sense. Okay, and the beauty thing is that I can add this fake shadow over here on the right side as well. Okay, and then if we look at the right on this side, I can basically just reuse this flipped the other way around. Okay, because we have the vents, we have the shadow, so we can just reuse it here. Okay, so this is basically unique. We identified unique part. Now, we have a situation here on the right side, because if you look here, so this is the other apartment block, but let's look at this one, right? So we start with the fake shadow, basically this side. We would just get this here and flip it, but we would end up with no shadow, because here we don't have a fake shadow, fake AO, right? So if we flip it horizontally, we won't have any shadow here. That would look weird. Why add it only on one side, right? So yeah, let's illustrate the shadow again. So what I would do in this case, I would just extend this part on the UV plan like a bit more. So let me just get rid of this. something like this, and maybe add a bit more, and then I can have shadow here. Okay, so when I am texturing this part of the apartment block, I'm gonna make a cut here before the fake AO, right? And then I can flip this here, so it's gonna be like this, and there's not gonna be any shadow here. But for the right side, I can simply use this, so we're gonna have this shadow over here, but since it's bigger, so it's gonna be something like this, I can just make like a cut here or somewhere, I don't know, and just move this slightly a little bit until I have the shadow. So basically this shadow is gonna be here. So I'm already trying to think like where I'm gonna have cuts and how many and so on and so forth, right? Okay, I guess that's it for the beige part. We already added the vents and all that. And now let's look at the brown part. So we have this entire size, okay? And if we look without windows, obviously I like to add the fake shadow, which we can see in this thing, right? So of course we could just extend this and then a bit more. I always like to add a bit more. So this would be brown and this would be beige on the diffuse. But I want this thing. So what I would do is start from here, right? Do this part, something like this, with a brown color, and then after this, because this is quite unique, I really like this. Then I can just increase it a bit more, just to cover like I don't know, like this ratio. So I would maybe add like up until here, so this would all be beige. But on this part, I would have like the shadow. Okay, so this part would all be unique on my diffuse. And I think that covers everything because this one can be reused from here. It's basically this, so this can go here and probably cover the other sides of the thing. And one more thing which I'm noticing is that there is this split between the apartment blocks. So I would add that I would add it somewhere here maybe. So I would add this line here somewhere. So I would plan for that as well. Hope it makes sense. Let's actually make it a bit bigger, something like that. And then we would have like this thing and with the line there. So I would have that. There is one thing. We have this bottom here, okay? Where I would have I don't know how to call those little windows to the basement. Now there is a thing which many people do when they texture is like, so you have this this color, and let's make like something like that, and then grab the other color and make something like this. Whoops, see what's going on. Why are you not updating? Okay. Now this looks really fucking weird. Because people have like those two colors on their texture, so they make a cut here and then combine them. I don't like to make such cuts. I want, as Ronik says, like you want the transition to be on the diffuse. So what I would do is like grab this entire part, grab this entire bottom part. Whoops, let's change back to red. I would like all this bottom part to be a continuation here. Right, so let's think, how big is it? So something like this. I'm basically eyeballing it, so it's gonna be like here, maybe. Okay, something like that. And I'm also including the beige because I'm gonna add this thing on the diffuse, so we have this nice transition with a little bit of shadow, and it's gonna look so Gucci. Okay, so we want that part over here, so we can plan for that. So something like this. And we can probably do the same. Well, actually, we want this cut here, so we can add a little bit here just to have that cut. Okay, so that would be unique. We don't need anything else here because it's just reused parts. Let's see. So I'm just looking for other unique elements right now. Definitely this I don't know how to call it, metal something is unique, so I would plan like something like this for it. Okay, we have this door, which is unique, so I would plan for that. So let's do here like a small rectangle. Let's do this door. I'm just gonna eyeball it, so something like that. And then we can see that inside here we again have in this corner this beautiful shadow. And if you haven't planned with the shadows and all that, you are fucked. You won't have any beautiful shadow there. So on this side, like this face here, this face can be reused from here. Or somewhere, you know, like anywhere where you have the shadow, so you can already make it like stand out the entire asset. Then we can, if you really want, you can make like a small extrusion here, and then you can grab like a little portion from the top here, and then a little bit on the right side, and then you combine them together, so something like that. So you have shadows on both sides. Okay, so you basically have this entire thing. So again, we are already finding so many ways to reuse the materials that we already did redo. So I have the door. Let's door. Okay. Then maybe this light thing can be reused from somewhere else. I don't know, like you can make it beige color, so you don't have to plan for that. Yeah, and I'm not really seeing any other things. Okay. Sorry. And then you would just plan for the windows, because you have the extrusion inwards, right? And then you have this a little bit of shadow in the corners, and the fake AO, which you can reuse from different parts like this. Okay, so you can just map it there. And then you have windows, and you have to decide like how many windows do you want to make in the unique. And I usually don't exaggerate with this. I never ever go more than 4 windows. Unless, I don't know, it's like a specific building or something. But in this case, I would just grab like, I don't know, like I would grab this one, maybe this one. I'll need one with 2 sets of windows. Okay, so I don't know, 4 windows. I'm just trying to think like how obvious would it be, because you can reuse this one here, this one can go here, this one you can repeat here, and so on. Maybe 3 and 3 would be a good idea, just so you have like more variation. So you would plan for all of those. Okay. Yeah, you have the door, those. Then you would have like, I would probably add only one and then just reuse it everywhere, because those are kind of like meh. Yeah, and then you keep looking. What else can you reuse, and so on. Oh, definitely those windows at the top. So this, and I would just make 2 variations. Now that I look like each, so this is number 2022, 2021, so that must be 2023. If you want, you can plan for this window and make like, I wouldn't bother, because you would need like one unique version for each window. That would be already 4 windows, and if you want to add like 2 more variations here, that would be crazy. So I wouldn't add those little details. Or if you really want to, you can add them on an alpha plane and float them a little bit above. That would be less wasteful than having such a large thing on 4 times. But I think I would have here like, I don't know, like maybe 3 windows. If we already said we go with 3 windows, and then you can stack them and add something opacity, something very soft in the windows, like to represent the interior staircase or whatever. And then you can just reuse 1 window here. Okay. And then there's probably some stuff for the roof, and I can see that there's how to say, like a metal trim which goes around, and probably the roof is a little bit sunken, like in a V shape, and then the corners are probably sunken a little bit. I don't really know how those roofs look like, but I wouldn't plan like such a big face on the texture just to have those silly details. Like don't do that. I know everyone in this game is like, oh, but the roof is so important. The roof, you always look at the roof. Yeah, sure, I get it, but like make optimized assets. Like don't go crazy. Like don't make a 4K texture resolution size just so you can see a little brick here or whatever that is. Like you can chop it like here and then reuse it like I don't know like 6 times or something, and then have like some I don't know unique detail or something. I don't know, make it less repeatable. But yeah, you would do exactly the same thing. Plan for the roof side. Okay, and if you go and layout all of this, so this would be the plan. Okay, so then we would move to the UV layout. So what would we have? We would have like this is just eyeballing. Okay, let's do it in a different way. So I'm gonna make like with a blue color. I'm moving a little bit ahead, but just so you understand the concept. Okay, so we would have 3 windows like those, and then we will have like a larger window. So this would be like this. So those would be that, and then we would have that, and it would be in 3 variants. So I don't know, something like this. Then we would have the door. Let's maybe change the color to something else. So we would have like this door here. I don't know, let's make it like a brownish color. Okay, something like that. Let me get rid of those 2 things. So that's for the door. And then let's make it, let's actually grab this color here. Whoa. Oh, this is so annoying. Like you have to actually make the rectangle, and then I'm just eyeballing this. Obviously it would be way easier to do it in Blender or whatever you guys are using. So we would have that, and that would be the beige part. Okay, and then we would have like one more part, and that would be this, including the I lost my I lost my thinking. Okay, that, and then a little bit more for, I don't remember what I planned there or what I said. So yeah, it would just be like another rectangle here. I seriously, sorry, I'm kind of rushing and I don't want to make the video way too long, so you would have something like that. I really forgot what that was. Then you have a little bit for the metal trim, so metal roof thingy. So this could be like a, I don't know, like a gray bluish thing, kind of like that. And I think that is it. That is it. So those would be like all the unique parts, and yeah, maybe you would have like something a bit larger for the roof, and those would be like the entire unique parts that you UV planned for the entire building. Like you don't need anything else. Okay, so the next step would be to UV plan this, to UV layout. Okay, so you would pack them as best as you can, like leaving little gaps and optimizing and everything. And you can already go like with the intuition, like this could already be like a 512 by 512 or something. Okay, and yeah, then we continue with the next video. Let me think if I forgot anything. I just want to show you one thing, because people are saying, oh, this gradient is so hard to do, it's impossible, blah, blah, blah. It's not. Let's just quickly, I'm going to get rid of all of this. Hopefully you already understood the idea. So let's try to quickly recreate this part. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but just so you understand the idea. So we would have that, like the base wall, basically from outer here to outer here to the top. Okay, so we would have that, and everything that I do with patterns. I don't download textures, so I have this concrete pattern. I have a million patterns. You can find them on my website along with many other resources. So I don't know, let's make it a bit less. Let's move it a bit, I don't know. No, I guess 100 was fine. So let's move it here maybe, something like that. Color overlay, let's grab this color from here. Let's make it, so I'm just doing opacity, like I want, how much do you want from the base pattern to reveal? So 0 opacity, 100 is full color. So I'm just decreasing it just so I can see a little bit of the pattern there. Okay, and then we have the inner part, so something like that. Well, it goes all the way to the bottom, but whatever, you get the idea. So what do we want? We want to turn the fill opacity. Basically, this makes discolored. I want to get rid of it. Okay, turn it to 0, all right? And then you make an inner shadow. Oh, this already looks kind of good. It's some old settings I used for whatever. And I usually like to add 2 inner shadows. Whenever I do those gradients or shadows and so on and so forth, I like to do a combination of 2. One softer and bigger, and one smaller but stronger. This is obviously a technique I got from the Wonder Boy, Mr. Onyx. So this would be larger and very soft, like. And if you're thinking, how soft should I go, like how low opacity, whenever you, like, there is a guy, Pix Imperfect, who has very good Photoshop tutorials, and he has a saying, like, when you tweak this slider, like, this looks good, turn it way lower, because your eyes are looking only at this, but they are not seeing like the entire context or something. So if I think like this is fine, 20, go 12, like go half and a bit more or something. So let's make it something like that, okay? And then I add another one, another inner shadow, and this is gonna be smaller size, okay? Sorry, distance and size a bit less, but make it a bit stronger. So something like that. And you can see with or without. I think it's a bit way too strong. So something like that maybe. Okay. So now we already have this on the diffuse, this beautiful, beautiful shadow here. And obviously you make the extrusion there, like on the actual mesh, but now you have that part to map it somewhere. So it's gonna look really, really Gucci. Okay, I hope this made sense. Oh, we are already 30 minutes. If you have any questions about this thing, the UV planning, ask in the comments, and I will try to answer as best as I can in the next video, which is gonna be the UV plan for the actual building that I'm doing in this series. And of course, I'm not gonna prepare anything. I'm gonna do it live, so you can see my thinking process and all that. But yeah, this is it. I hope you enjoyed, and if you try this, definitely start with a very simple building. Okay? Take care, everyone. Peace.